resort that was like a triangle, and it was 300-400 yards from the parking lot out to the main road coming in. And we'd been sitting in the bar, and those are back in the days when Larry couldn't drink a case of quarts, but he could drink a case of 12 ounce, which means there's only a half a bottle short for every 2 quarts. But anyhow, we've been discussing. I had to throw that in. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I was a beer salesman for years, and Larry and Sue and I and my little brother Earl were talking about the bears. And one of the big things was to go up to Boulder Junction and show the bears, you know. And we'd go to the dump, and we had to take the garbage every night. And I don't know if Sue and Larry had made a dump ride with us, but as you're throwing the garbage out, you had to keep the trailer going because the bears would be grabbing the bags of fish. So we had Sue all primed and Larry all primed, and Earl and Sue and Larry go take a walk.
We're going. He's taking us back to the cottage with a flashlight.
They're walking around this big triangle. Well, there was an old logging road through that triangle, and Bill decided to be the bear. And I came up, and there was Earl and Sue just running.
Earl was 9 years old at the time, and he just had my hand, and he was pulling me. Oh, we gotta go.
I turned around and shined the light on Billy.
Laughing, and Larry
Some bear. I turned around, and all you could see these 2 butts running as fast as they could down the road, and Earl in the lead pulling her, and so Earl having to keep up. If he hadn't pulled her, she wouldn't have run as fast.
No, I would have stopped and considered the whole thing, but the way he was pulling it, I thought, we're in danger, we better move.
And ever since then, Billy has remained unbearable. I'm sorry, I couldn't help that, Bill.
Yeah.
In my family, that's called an Uncle Larry joke. My children have always referred to those jokes as Uncle Larry jokes.
I hear that from time to time.
But they weren't smart enough to quit coming up there after the first.
No, a couple of times. I think the time that the furnace exploded in Honeymoon Cottage, we had Larry, and there was soot all over his crib in there because it was right, you know, so that I think was the last time we came up there.
Oh, no. You know, that was during the time I was in the service. You came up after I got out of the service.
Yeah.
And some of you people heard this, but after I got out of service, and I went back to college for a year, and then I came home and I was working for a mason, doing mason work, and I wanted a dog. And my dad would not allow anybody to have a female dog. And of course, back in 1968, Johnny Cash had done, you know, Boy Named Sue. Well, I picked out this dog, and it just happened not to have the proper equipment. So I couldn't call her Millie or anything else. I had to call her Sue. And explain to my dad, it's the boy named Sue. Get over it. And I would call the dog, here Sue, here Sue. Suzanne would come up to the cottage.
What's wrong, Bill?
And I think I was called a jerk.
I've heard that.
Something else once or
Who
twice.
called you that?
His father.
You called me a jerk.
I did not. I don't think so.
Was it a horse's butt?
I don't think so.
Or a derivative thereof.
Actually, she was never much of a name caller.
dog Sue.
Well, it was funny anyway. Every time I heard him calling his dog, I'm jumping. What do you want, Bill?
The drove her nuts.
It was young. You had to talk to the dog in a harsh voice.
But you know what was so funny up there too? Earl, you know, when our honeymoon was, he was 9 years old, and he loved to catch fish and then drag the dead fish around. So every morning we'd go out of our cottage and there's a dead fish again.
You put him in our garbage can. He'd come out and
Earl would like to pop the eyeballs out of him and use it for bait.
Bill, we had a good time up there every time we went up there, though. A lot of
It was interesting.
Yeah, all the time, all the time. there anything else? Does anybody remember anything they wanted to share?
I like this.
Yeah.
This includes Keith and Ruth Wright. The four of us were at the wedding, and I thought it was one of the nicest weddings. We had more fun, and we were sitting across from this couple, and she was expecting, I was expecting, but we had more fun dancing and eating and so forth and so on. And a lot of you that were there probably remember the alarm that went off,
Yeah.
where everybody had to pitch in, and I guess the firemen were the bartenders, but they were called to the fire, so the bar was left empty, so the guests or somebody else took over. Well, anyhow, I thought that always stayed in my memory.
Yeah, everybody's memory.
But anyhow, we enjoyed the wedding. We enjoyed this couple that were there and so forth and so on. And so therefore, the years went by. I never saw these folks again until Keith and I were members of the Historical Society.
Oh, right.
And I got to know her, at that time not too well, but then we went to Larry's 60th birthday party, and I saw Ruth there, and I thought, she looks familiar, where have I seen her? Oh yes, at the Historical Society. So what happens, and this was coincidence again, we both ended up, the four of us, ended up sitting at the same table. And one thing led to another, and found out that we sat across from each other at the wedding.
Yeah.
Well, here, Ruth, as I say, was expecting, and it turned out that we both lived near each other, we're in the same school district, and we both had girls, and both the girls were not close friends, but they knew each other in high school, graduated in the same class and everything. So here they were married the same year we were, which was 59, and then we have the girls that were the same age. So anyhow, I always thought that it was.
But we really didn't know each other till what? 10
Until we
years
saw
ago,
each
10
other
years
at the
ago.
60th, because I knew who you were, but I thought, where have I seen her before? And then it dawned on me that it was the Historical Society. Then as we sat at the table at the birthday party, we shared more memories and found out that we were at the, maybe you were the
I
one
was
that.
the one who told you, well, you know each other from our wedding.
Yeah, okay. I guess, all right. And so with that, you know, we,
Well, I just looked at my picture in there on the wall, on that board, and I went, whoa. So
is the four of
no
us,
wonder you didn't know me.
Yeah.
was the four of us in the picture?
Yeah.
No, it's just Keith and me.
Oh,
okay.
no, we didn't. Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Well, anyhow, I've told this story many, many times because I thought it was sort of unique.
So
Yeah.
he
And
says,
as I
what
say,
is that on your head? And I said, it's a hat. People wear hats.
Everybody wore hats then. It was just,
and because I was pregnant, I wore low shoes, so I could dance really very easily and not have to combat heels and stuff like that. And so our shoes off. Yeah, I don't know. I could still picture myself at that place.
I know that everybody has always commented, it was a great wedding. They still remember it. Nobody's
Yeah.
forgotten it.
Yeah.
And it was just a good wedding, I think.
And another little item is we came to your house for dinner one night, and it was during the time you must have been expecting Larry, because it was your first baby, and you were in Elmwood Park.
Yeah.
So anyhow, that's
I
my
know,
little.
we had a new stove, and when Larry, was one of his jobs at Sears was to clean the stoves, and he went through that stove, he took every screw out of it and cleaned it. It was really something.
Did he get it back?
That was torn.
Yeah, yeah, he got it.
In the right
But
spots.
I also wanted to say something too. You said you were pregnant, Ruthie was pregnant,
Yeah.
Darlene was pregnant.
Yes, and then I heard this.
The girl who caught the bouquet was pregnant. Margie
Oh
was
my
pregnant. There was, everybody was pregnant. Even if you didn't know they were. And we are all having babies so quick. It was really something.
I'd like to say something. I know Larry for about 50 years. And Mara and I were sorry we weren't at the wedding.
We didn't know you then.
We didn't know Sue at that time.
Oh, okay.
No, I do. Larry,
65, 1965.
I was 35 then.
Yeah.
That's when Todd was born.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No, that was,
Well, I know him from when I worked for Al.
oh,
Yeah,
that's
right,
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 that's
now,
right.
older.
Yeah.
Henry had a hardware store on Addison Street. And one day I'm in the shop, the guy I worked for worked out at his shop in his garage. We had 2 trucks and a workshop in there. And I'm in the shop getting something ready for a job, and a yellow Ford station, I think a Chevy station wagon pulls up. No, it was a Ford. Because Henry's in there, and Henry is, how do you put it, what you might call a very active person.
Yeah.
Hyperactive.
Hyperactive.
Always very, very busy. And this guy pulls up and he says, "Hi, I'm Henry." He gives me an address, and his air conditioner's working at the apartment. Pick up the key at the hardware store. Before I could even ask a question, he's down the street. I'm asking, who was Henry? And I had been in the hardware store a couple of times, but I never saw him in there. At least I didn't remember. So I remember the address is on Central Avenue, just south of Addison, and I remember there's a hardware store at Central and Addison, right on Addison Street there. And I mean, Irving, Central and Irving. And so I go over to the hardware store at Central and Irving, and go in as I need the key for the apartment. What apartment? This one here. What are you talking about? And, sorry, I had a mistake, and I walk out. That's strange. Hardware store. Wait a minute. I'll bet he's the guy from the hardware store on Addison Street. So I went over there, and sure enough, the key was there. That's how I met Henry.
We've been good friends ever since.
Yeah. And eventually, he had a shop in the back of his hardware store that he used to rent out to another contractor who built walk-in coolers. And the guy bellied up and went out of business, and it was available. So when I went into business, we rented the back of the hardware store from him until he sold it.
So we have a long history with Henry too. So.
It was kind of handy. You needed something. There was a door that connected the hardware store. We didn't even have to go outside. We just walked into the hardware store, got it, marked it down, and went back in.
But, a big but here, go ahead. There was a big but in my life too. B-U-T. Go ahead, finish the story. Walking into the hardware store.
Which time?
Putting a lock, the door.
Oh, your mother. His mother,
Was a
the
sergeant.
German lady.
Oh, it was a sergeant.
She
She was a very sweet.
Henry would have the store, well, be running the store. Sometimes he'd go somewhere, she'd come in, and she'd run the store for him. And as soon as she did, she'd close the gate between our shop and the hardware store and lock it. So we couldn't go through. And we'd go through, and then we'd have to go on and go around and go around in the front door. And so I started calling her Sergeant.
Sarge.
And I asked Henry about it, and so she just, everything has to be secure, you know, very ethnic quality about her. And I thought, she don't like us. No, that's not how I took it. And Ernie used to say, she doesn't have any use for us. She doesn't trust us. You know, she doesn't want us coming through that door without her knowing about it. Okay, fine. So one day I go through, and she had just got done locking it, and she's standing there. And she goes to open it for me, but I don't say a word. I say, excuse me, close the door and walked on around and came to the front door. And she says, why did you do that? I says, what? He says, why didn't you just say, open the door for me? And I said, well, I says, for whatever reason you think it should be locked, I don't want to upset you. And she says, oh, don't take that personally. She says, I just don't want to be responsible for anyone that would go in there and take something without my knowing about it. And it turned out it had nothing to do with her not liking us. She liked us enough that she was trying to protect us. And isn't life like that a lot of times? That we will take an experience and put the wrong twist on it when the exact opposite is true. And so one time I came into the store and I asked Henry, where's Sarge? And Henry says, Sarge, who's Sarge? I said, your mother. And I thought I was going to get in trouble. He says, he laughs. He says, no, you mean the little general.
We used to call Mom Sarge too.
No, Mother Superior.
Mother Superior.
Yeah. I'm very happy with that. But anyway,
And that was a compliment too, because we'd seen a movie about a Mother Superior and a rebellious nun, and the Mother Superior treated this rebellious nun that was always getting into trouble, and she was very patient. And so when I called her Mother Superior, I was really kind of praising her a little bit. She, just like I did with Sarge,
right.
she saw it backwards.
Well, anyway, we had then 2 children. We had Larry first. I don't know if he's down here. So he's out
He's
there.
down here somewhere.
Okay. Larry?
No, he's
Well, Larry was our oldest, and 5 years later we had Todd. And now we have Brandon, who's our youngest grandson.
And one of the twins here.
Daniel's over here. And his brother Paul is in the Marines, and he's over in Japan right now. And so,
he's an ordnance technician.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he puts the rockets on planes, on jet planes, the ones that they carry under the wings. And I asked him about it, and Sue was glad that relieved that he wasn't in combat. But I asked him about it, and he said, it's a real, he says, a highly sensitive job. He says, the ordnance is unstable. If you drop one, boom.
Yeah.
Gotta be real careful.
It's a dangerous kind of work anyway. But,
Well, you got Cindy.
yeah, we got Cindy is Todd, I'm sorry. Cindy is Todd's wife, and Kim, who was down here doing the cooking and stuff, she's Larry's wife.
She did a very good job.
Oh, they all did. Her mother helped, and her sister helped.
I saw a big sign going up outside saying eats.
He liked the restaurant. I thought it was real good too. Well, now I think
Well,
we
you
can.
kids did a very nice job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Everybody's here. There's some pictures of us, our board here, and there's my wedding dress in this room. I know, I thought this is the only time I'll be able to use it after we were married, so I thought I'm going to put it on a hanger and just let it be there. I can't get into it, but it's on the hanger.
Where do you get that?
Right in there. And
I was going to rent another tux to hang next to it.
yeah, he kept saying, but I don't have a tux to hang with the dress.
And that was my biggest surprise when I got married. I discovered that tuxedos don't have pockets. Now what are you going to do with your wallet and keys?
Yeah. Hand it right over your wife. No, I didn't have anything to hold anything in either. My dress doesn't have a pocket.
You have your
There's an album that's going around if you want to look at them. I could have sent them. Kim, they all said thank you. You did a good job.
Thank you.
Thank
You
you.
too, Wendy. I'm not Wendy.
Wendy, no.
Cindy.
And Wendy.
I'm having senior minutes. Like And
I do the same
Todd-
thing with moment, not a minute.
Well, this one looks so much like his dad. He has all his life, and I keep calling him Todd.
Poor kid.
And Cassidy, thank you for your help with this whole thing.
Yeah.
It's been wonderful. Thank you. Okay, can we have some cake?
Yep. Everybody line up.